This is a video on deployment with Clarive. We have recorded a series of videos on deploying with Clarive, and in this one we are going to deploy a release. The release in Clarive, in the previous videos you have seen how to deploy change sets. We have deployed change sets with WAR files, with Endeavor packages, with COBOL sources managed in JIT, with Android, with iOS, with .NET. And now what we are going to do, we have come up to the QA environment and we are going to production. But to deploy to production, we are not going to deploy a single technology to a single platform. We are going to group change sets and we're going to deploy multiple technologies to multiple platforms with a single job coming from a single pipeline. And we will reuse the same pipeline as the one that we have used for all the deployments that we have done before with the chain sets. So here is I am now with my chain sets for my application. So for the mainframe app and the banking web, that's the front end, the web front end with the WAR file for Tomcat. This is the Endeavor package, and this is the JIT managed COBOL application that we are going to deploy. We are going to deploy these three together in this release. So they have been grouped and we will deploy the release. And that is currently in QA. Why this release is still in QA? That is simply because it inherits the status that its chain sets are in. So we have two chain sets that are ready for deployment, means they are ready to go to production, and one chain set is still being tested, is still in QA. When we will move this chain set to ready for deployment, we will be able to start the deployment to production. But we can add also in Clarive additional things like having approval steps in our process. So when I change the status of that chain set to the ready for deployment state, that means that all of the chain sets now that are part of the release are now in the ready for deployment state, and the release will go into a status waiting for approval. So waiting for approval, when I refresh that view, my release is now in the waiting for approval state, and you see that I have generated multiple approvals, multiple levels for each of the applications that are participating at the release. Mails have been sent out to the approvers, so they get mails like this one, where they are asked for their approval for the release and for that application. They can view the release or they can approve from here. By doing this, we will start a web service rule that will go to Clarive and that will register the approval of that user for that application and that release. So going back to my release, you'll see, since I have given my approval, you will see that the Clarive has registered the approval that I just gave in the release topic. So you see that now for this application, as level 1 approver, I have given my approval. So we're waiting for the other 5 to start or to progress with the release, in fact. So we can have release managers, business managers, development managers that can give their approval for a release before it goes to the production environment. So now, since that release is now ready to go to production, we can deploy it to production. And we do that by generating, like we did with the chain sets, a new job. A new job to promote, and it sees it's a release, so it's going to select multiple chain sets, and we will use the same pipeline. And we will get also here the date and time that we will deploy. I will come back to that later, and we will see that we have our release here that with 3 chain sets that is going to be deployed to the production environment. So let's create a job and have it running. So now the job has started and it's running in the monitor. You will see that now we have a release that is going to be deployed with multiple chain sets for multiple applications to multiple platforms and multiple technologies. Going back to the new job screen that I had, let's have a look here at the when, the date and time. So we can select the date and time when the release will be deployed. But we can only select this date and time if it is defined as a slot that is available to deploy in our calendars. So we have here in Clarive calendars, for instance, for quality assurance, we have a calendar with very little limitations. Almost we can deploy at any time except here on Wednesday and Friday, where we can only do urgent deployments. But for the production environment, it will be more strict. You see here that for the production environment, we can't deploy between we can deploy between midnight and 5. We can't deploy during the day. So for every day, we can define something else. We can define windows that we have maintenance so that we can't deploy at all. And we do that for all the jobs that go to production. But it's also possible, like we have multiple applications, multiple servers that we will touch, that we need a different calendar for an application because it's more critical than the other. For instance, the mainframe app can have a different calendar, or we can have servers that are more critical, and so we can define a different calendar for specific servers. And we'll have to take into considerations all of the calendars defined to allow here the time and day to be selected. And that time and day to be selected, we will have to know which applications we will touch, which servers we will touch, and which environment. That's why in Clarive we keep, in fact, the dependencies, and we see that we have the dependencies for the applications, for the packages, and stuff like that. So if I go back here to my release new job, and just go here back to that promote, you will see that when I click here and ask for dependencies, it's not like with the chain set, but it knows exactly what it's going to bring, which project, which service it's going to touch. So that's how it can calculate, or it can give you, in fact, an indication on what time the deployment will be possible to do, what window is allowed for the deployment. So going back to the monitor, my job is running now, and just looking at the log, you will see that as with the chain sets, the job has started. It has detected, in fact, that it has Endeavor to deploy, it has ZOS to deploy, it has WAR files to deploy, and it has started, as we had with chain sets, the static quality analysis for my WAR file. And if that wouldn't be would fail, because it's a production environment, I would fail the deployment, but it has passed. So it has done the Maven build, and it has, in fact, also already compressed my WAR file, and then it has looked for other natures. So it has found that there was a ZOS nature. That's the nature that I use for the JIT controlled global application. So it has launched the compile and link to, and then it has detected that it has Endeavor. But as we had already approvals in the process, we can also interrupt or pause or a job while it's executing and ask for an approval. So all of this, what was executed up till now, is in fact preparing the deployment. It hasn't deployed anything yet. It just prepared. And so we can also pause there and ask for an approval before starting the actual deployment. So when I go here to my monitor, you will see that now it has here a status approval. When I click here, again, I can approve it. And going back to my log, you will see it logs that I have approved this job to continue and to do deployment. You see it has been approved, and it's now actually deploying my WAR file to my Tomcat server, and it has done that. I can check it. It says, well, that's where it has been deployed. Just checking it, you see that I have here my new WAR file that has been deployed today, and it will continue with executing gmeter, my performance testing. So it just executes my gmeter scripts, and once that one will be finished, I will get the possibility to check, in fact, the results of that performance testing. So here I see execute, and it says click here to see. It goes directly to the console of gmeter, where I can see the results of my performance testing. And it continues with my ZOS, so my global controlled application in JIT, that it will deploy now to the mainframe. So it launches jobs to the mainframe. You can see here the trapping of the JES queue, where we have the result of the job that has run. Like we could see it on the mainframe. It's just integrating with the JES pool, so we can see that it has in fact deployed here to the prod load library, and my job is still continuing, and it is now in the further phase where it will start with the integration with Endeavor, so it will launch now. It has detected it has to do work with Endeavor, and it submits again JCL, but now for the Endeavor controlled application. So that's my third change set, in fact, that it's about to deploy. So it has done it, and it's got a return code of 4, which is acceptable. Again, the JESQ has been trapped. We can see the result, and it has in fact finished my deployment. And it has also done the post-processing, where it added in fact the prod environment to the environments that the change sets are in, and it has also changed the status of the change sets to deployed. So when I go here to my release, which was in waiting for approval, my change sets are ready for deployment. When I refresh that, I will see that my release is now deployed. My change sets are in the status deployed. So that's how I can, with a single job in one go, deploy multiple technologies to multiple platforms with a single pipeline. A pipeline that we have used in all of the deployments that we have done in the series of videos that we have made for deployment with Clarive.